Good evening. Welcome to the meeting. First item on the agenda we've covered. Second item on the agenda is to elect a vice chair.
May I propose as vice chair, Councillor Charleston?
And Councillor Podger seconding. Okay, so let's take the vote. So all those in favour of Councillor Charleston? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's unanimous. Thanks very much indeed. So Councillor Charleston is vice chair. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. We have Councillor Nettle substituting for Councillor Rimmer.
Thanks very much. Public questions and statements.
None were submitted, Chair.
Councillor questions and statements. We've got one written down here. Is there? No?
No.
Okay, fine. Minutes of previous meeting. Now, I know Jeremy was here at the last meeting, I believe, in February. I don't think anybody else was, so I shall look to Jeremy to give us a nod. And I think that's a nod. Unless anybody can refute that or comment otherwise, I think the minutes of the previous meeting are accepted. Declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. Dispensations.
None have been agreed, Chair.
Chairman's announcements. I have none. Cultural grant reporting. We're happy? We'll move on. Thank you.
That is indeed. Thank you.
Hello, thank you so much for having us here. My name is Rosa Corbishley. I'm Executive Director of Wiltshire Creative. And to start off with, a big thank you to you all for your commitment to our organisation and to the work and the beneficiaries that we work with. We've just handed out our impact report. We're going to be talking in detail about some of the areas that your investment helps particularly, but we're just really pleased to be here. Apologies to those who've seen a similar-ish version of this that I gave to the full council, but there's I'm joined by my wonderful new colleague, Sarah Gregson, who you all know, I'm sure, and she'll be talking in detail about some of the areas, and I'm just going to give a little broad overview of the organisation, just so you know. So Wiltshire Creative, key information. First off, I should have said we're a charity and we were formed in 2018 from a merger of 3 previous organisations, the Festival, the Playhouse and the Arts Centre. And we have a wide remit. We're one of the large, what's called national portfolio organisations, which is Arts Council funded organisations in the southwest of England. And we have a wide remit. So we run 350 events every year, reaching around 200,000 visitors that attend our beautiful venues and events. We are the only producing theatre in the county, and we're one of only 40 across the whole of the UK. One of the features of that is that we make shows. We don't just receive shows, we actually make and create them. And we build them, and when we build them, we take them out to across the world and across the country and across the world, taking the name of Salisbury to people everywhere. We have the rare assets of a costume and workshop facilities in our building, which are really special. In fact, only 3 theatres in the whole of the Southwest have those. We make pantomime, and through that, 25,000 people come to our pantomime every year, roughly 2/3 of Salisbury's residents. And all of this activity brings creative people to our city to see Salisbury in a new light. So 650 world-class actors, musicians, comedians and artists come to Salisbury every year. We deliver an economic impact on the city with over 20% of our visitors travelling more than 90 minutes to the venues using hotels and restaurants. We have strong net zero ambitions, which we're excited to tell you about and explore more with you as a group. We work with something called the Theatre Green Book, which is about trying to get theatres to really deliver net zero productions. But the whole organisation has an ambition to be net zero by 2030. And we were one of the first to get involved with Culture Declares Emergency. And a big part of our work is the 15,000 participation people that we work with through Take Part, which is what Sarah wonderfully manages for us. And she is going to talk in more detail.
Thank you. Lovely to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So thank you for listening to us today. So I am at Monday of week 6 in this role, but I was very familiar with the work of the Take Part team previously, and it's a real joy to be talking about it to you this evening. So you've received our report on the last year, and if anyone does have questions at the end in more detail, I'm happy to answer those. But I think what's really important is, first of all, we put the work of the Take Part team, which is the engagement, outreach, formal and informal learning across the festival, the Playhouse, the Arts Centre, and out in the communities, into some context for you. So one of the key things is that we at Wiltshire Creative and the City Council share a core priority, which is about improving the well-being of residents. Now, our participants at Wiltshire Creative tell us that these are the elements that contribute most to their well-being when they come and participate in our work. So, self-expression, and that is finding their voice through music, writing, performance, art, design, making. And so our programme is focused on giving people an opportunity to kind of find their own personal voice. Community building. So by this we mean partly our place-based work, which I'll talk more about in places like Bemerton Heath, which is about listening to the residents, about what they want to say about the place that they live, what they want to see in the place that they live, and why they want to come together in the place that they live. But also the community of Wiltshire Creative. So through our volunteering, through connecting the people in our outreach through to our places and spaces, our buildings, our professional production work, which there'll be lots of opportunities to do in the coming year. And really it's connecting people to Salisbury through their contribution to its culture, that they get an opportunity to be part of the culture of the city. We also look to the removal of barriers to participation through bursaries, but really more fundamentally, and what I really want you to take away today, and that I have learnt more about in the last 6 weeks, is the inclusion practice across the work, looking at every single element of what we do and thinking, how can we make this a stress and judgment-free space? So we're not just talking about physical access, although that is important. We're talking about skilled practitioners on the staff who look at absolutely every session and every programme of work, who is coming to this and who may face a barrier to it. What can we do about that on a day-to-day basis? Learning new skills. Feeling that you're learning new skills and making progress in life is one of the key components to well-being and to how people perceive their own well-being. We have very specific programs. Probably the clearest ones are the Creative Careers, which is giving young people access to connections with professionals. Things like our Young Technicians, where you can clearly see there's a skills development element, but also things like Dance 6.0, which I'll talk a little bit more about, because the learning journey doesn't stop when you leave school. And then social connection. Fundamentally, all of our work is about social connection. It enables people from a range of backgrounds to come together, to meet new people. And volunteering is a key pathway here to bring people together to achieve something together and form bonds through that process. And lastly, improving access to active lifestyles. What I'm very keenly aware of is that active lifestyles means different things to different people. And so much of our work is the reason somebody walks into town once a week and they get out of their house. So there's one end of the scale there, and at the other end of the scale is dance projects. Every rehearsal has a physical warm-up. People are moving and building a positive relationship with their own body and space through our work. Underpinning all that is training the team properly. The Take Part staff are trained in mental health first aid, understanding neurodiversity, and individuals even going as far as having things like trauma-based training, and looking at who we employ and the skill set they bring to support all of that. So what I'm moving on to now is there are 3 strands of work that the City Council's investment really supports, and the first of those is our Older People's Programme. What I want to do, beyond what is in the report, is frame it in terms of what the outcomes are for people. So we'd look at building skills and social connection. So working with Silver Salisbury through performances, supporting their meetings so that they can go on to do their wide programme of work. And then also finding a sustainable future for sessions. So a great example of this is the Vinyl Cafe, which is part of the Silver Salisbury programme and has been for years. It's found its home in Salisbury Playhouse. The person that Silver Salisbury were employing to run it, that funding has come to an end. But we have worked over time to ensure that the volunteers at the Playhouse have understood, know how it runs, have built relationships with the participants, and now they are running it for a sustainable future. Mind the Gap is our fortnightly creative sessions for older people, which enables them to access a really wide range of professional creatives, creative activities through writing. I attended a beautiful devising theatre workshop where they went through 2 sessions just recently, working with, again, a professional theatre maker. But what's important there as well is that those older people, they have something to bring. In that session, somebody had a wealth of knowledge that they could bring to the devising process. All of a sudden, they were the expert in the room. And that is one of the great values of that. Every single person has something to bring to the sessions. Active lifestyles and social connection. So I've already spoken a little bit about Dance ICSO, but that's a partnership with Dance ICSO, which is an organisation in and of itself. And we support them with free and subsidised rehearsal space and dance studio space. Working at 2 levels. So there's a company where it's about improving skills and excellence, but then there's also a weekly class that anybody can access. And then there's a progression between the 2. They've also just completed a large project connecting with schools. And without that weekly space and the in-kind support that we offer, they wouldn't be able to access that funding and go on to do those projects. A sense of value and social connection. Volunteering. 138 volunteers over 60 years of age. We couldn't run without them, but they come to us for all sorts of different reasons, coming to the end of their working life, finding a new sense of purpose, connecting with new friends, and a good number of them who've lost partners and are looking to ensure that they're not sitting at home on their own. And some of them, just because they've got great experience and skills in the right sort of, from their work life, that they bring and we benefit from. And a sense of belonging. So the Playhouse and the Arts Centre also provide a warm and welcome space, up to 500 people in the city with a low-cost drink, no pressure to move on when you finished your coffee. It's a space you can be. And we also, within that, provide free dedicated space to local community groups. And those include the Alzheimer's Carers Group, Action for Happiness, the Parkinson's Support Group, MS Carers, the Digging Community Cafe, Salisbury Deaf Group, and I've already mentioned the Vinyl Cafe. These are groups that they don't have a bank account even. You know, they are a group that's really vital to the people who are using it, and they just need a space to meet, and we are more than happy to provide it. So moving on to disadvantaged communities. Again, much more detail in the full report, but again, placing it in a different context. So place-based work, what is it? It's responding to the health and opportunity inequality in our city by listening to the people who are there. The outcomes of that are an annual family fiesta held in Bemerton Heath, with professional artists, but also the voluntary sector, the food bank, Acorn Community Bank, all coming together, Rise 61, the youth organisation, Salisbury City Council Communities team, but coordinated by us and bringing professional performance and professional artists into the mix, which enables us to meet between 250 and 300 residents, to have conversations with them and to build the rest of the programme from there. One of the outcomes of that is the Play in the Day, which was on last Thursday at St Michael's in Bemerton, a free holiday activity for Key Stage 2 pupils. And that is about listening to the parents. What do they need? What is not available to them on their doorstep? What can they not afford to do that everybody else seems to be able to access? And then also working with other projects, so the Beautiful Bemerton project, providing our expertise and our pool of professionals to make sure that their project, to create an artwork to welcome people to their space that says why they love it and what's important about Bemerton Heath, to realise that, because we have the connections and the professional skills. And then the Sarum Academy After School Drama Club, which is focused on building confidence and things like oracy. So those are things that teachers and parents are keen for their young people to be able to access, and again, entirely free. Similarly, people-led work. So whilst you might see Under 5 Fridays in our programme and the Exeter House SEND satellite and our home education programme, what's important that you understand is that that comes from those groups of people telling us what they want and need. And we are in constant evaluation loop with those groups, home educated parents and young people, with the teachers and staff at Exeter House and the young people taking part, to kind of constantly evolve that offer to make sure that we are actively including people who might not have access to what we're able to provide. And then young people, a huge part of our programme, and there's probably too much information in the report, but please do read that in great detail. But placing that in the context of the outcomes, so skills, performance, social connection, stage 65. There's 114 young people performing on the main stage in about 4 weeks' time in Jungle Book, developing their creative and soft skills through that performance. But what I talked about before with the inclusion practice, every single session has somebody in the room whose focus is inclusion, in ensuring that the people who may struggle with speech and language, who might have anxiety going on as part of their needs, are supported to participate alongside everybody else in the room. Our Young Technicians programme, this is about working with professionals, working on live performances where it's ticketed events, learning the skills and then using them in a real world context. Youth music, very similarly, but you could also label this as people-led. This came from our Young Ambassadors programme. There's not enough opportunity for young performers in this city, so we created it. And those young people still support it, but we have the staffing infrastructure and the venues to make that happen, through band nights, jam nights, performance platforms, and providing rehearsal space for those young people as well. And then voice. So the word voice is in there because it is about enabling people to say what they think and have it taken seriously, and connecting them to a sense of professionalism and professional pathways. So we have our Young Ambassadors scheme, which are monthly sessions for young creative and cultural professions, broadening out what people might think. Everybody does drama at school and their first contact is performing. They might have a go on the lighting board, but this is an industry with a wealth of creative and cultural job opportunities. And that's what Young Ambassadors brings them into contact with our marketing team, with our producers, with our front of house team in creating audience experience. And they are genuinely able to influence our policy and programming and our delivery across the programme. And then our Creative Careers programme, with the annual programme of placements workshops, building arts and cultural sector understanding. In just a few weeks' time, the 20 young people who are doing Creative Careers with us this year will be interviewing us all and asking what they want to know about what we do, how we got there, what they need to do the same. And so I'm just going to finish my section by drawing out, I'm literally just going to read this to you because it speaks for itself. We've done some case studies in the first quarter of this year, and the themes that draw out of those case studies from our youth theatre specifically that are important to those young people are inclusion. I felt comfortable in who I was and able to be who I was because I knew people here weren't going to judge me for who I was, and that's a huge difference. I've noticed it in the other people here, and they can also be who they are, and they can request all of the things they need to help them get on in the same field as everyone else. Career pathways. I've always known there was a lot behind the scenes because that was something that always interested me. But being able to witness it and experience how many talented people there are, people aren't even on the stage, that's just so fascinating to me. I would love to work with the sound department because all the technicians and equipment involved, that has always caught my eye. And social skills and confidence. I think it's helped with my confidence in approaching new people and initiating conversations, which is something I struggled with before stage. Now I find myself going out randomly just to hang out with friends or even by myself because I like that and I can do that. And mental health. Being here every Wednesday has given me that structure and routine and something just to pull myself out of bed for. And those are the impacts that we're seeing and that I look forward to capturing more and telling you more about in the future. Thank you.
And just to finally finish, it's the last slide, I promise, just a little bit about the wider organisation and the wider impacts for communities in Salisbury. As you know, we're right in the middle of Salisbury International Arts Festival, started last weekend. Just some examples where we are drawing large numbers of the community together has been Unity, which was our outdoor piece in the Market Square. Over 6,000 people attended that event over the course of 4. It was amazing. Absolutely. It's overused, the term world class, but sort of the best there is brought here to Salisbury. But what was special about it was the pieces, the words that were co-curated with the people of Salisbury that were, I thought, incredibly profound, that dug deep into sort of messages and stories that were important to people in Salisbury. So that's really excellent. And Family Fiesta, which happened on Saturday, 1,200 young people and their families came and had a joyous day in the sunshine, seeing theatre, doing craft activities with professionals. And what was important for us is that we saw many of the families we work with from the Friary, from Bemerton Heath, coming and engaging with other families in the city, and everybody feeling really comfortable in a space that is for all people in Salisbury. I've talked about economic impact, but that is absolutely undoubted. There's also the wider festival impact. We are drawing a light. Many of the events in the festival gained national media attention. We've had articles in The Guardian in anticipation of the thing, and a couple of articles on the BBC. So just really raising the profile of the city and the work. And I shine a light particularly on Tempest that happened in 2023. 150 community participants took part in a professional production that also garnered national profile, done with exceptional quality. And what we're really excited to announce is that we have plans to do something at the same scale in 2026, and more of that anon. But just to finally leave with you a great sense of thanks for Salisbury City Council for their continued support of our organisation. I hope you feel that we've done well with your money. That's us. Any questions from us?
Well, thank you very much. That was a fantastic presentation. I personally have to say I am amazed by your diversity, as you're not only excellent at what you do in terms of the media and creative arts, but tapping into all of these community stuff, for want of a better term, I just find blows my mind, and I am very impressed. Questions from the floor, please.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you both for attending. It is just wonderful to see the inclusion of your work and the diversity of work, as Councillor Taylor says. Reading through your report earlier, obviously again struck by how committed you are to working with us and how your themes closely align with our themes and our hopes for the city. What I would notice, obviously, though, is our grant nowhere near covers the cost of all your work. So, and then I noticed, obviously, that you mentioned like a lot of organisations, national insurance contributions increase, inflation increases, it puts extra pressures on your budgets. So I guess my two questions are, A, how do you cover the rest of your programme of work beyond our funding? And second of all, how do you see it going forwards? Are you going to be asking us for more money going forwards, basically?
I'll answer the first bit, and of course Sarah can jump in as well. In terms of the importance of statutory investment, it can't be overstated. It's so important for us and for organisations like ours to see investment from their local local communities, really, and our funders and who fund the sort of vast bulk of our work, the Arts Council England, want to see investment from local authority. So you're right, the model of investment is wide, and we also sell tickets. We have multiple ways of making money. And all of the work we've presented today is not solely funded by Salisbury City Council, but yet your work goes into that whole sweep of work. So you are delivering and leveraging other income opportunities for us. That's what, and it's absolutely essential. And your question about whether or not we ask for more investment. I mean, I think, of course, every cultural organisation will always say there's more to be done. But, we are mindful that there's pressure on budgets, and we would work with the administration. We're not going to be unreasonable. We would never be. So this is a conversation, and that's what we're here to say, is that we're here to work alongside you to deliver the things that are important for you, and because they're important for us as well. So that's what I would say.
May I just add a little to that answer? I think what's really important to understand is there's quite a large amount of trusts and foundations work that we do for grants for our activity, all of which require match funding. So where this is secured for the year, we are then able to garner further investment for the city and for all of this work. So it is, without that, we can't access those funds. Yeah. There's a minimum of 20% match. Often 50 for trusts and foundations grants. And then the other thing I'd like to say is I'd really like to enter into a really active conversation with this council in the coming months. We've got a sort of a deadline of submitting something to you for the beginning of August. But between now and then, you will be reviewing your priorities. I would like to be a part of that conversation and make sure that what we're delivering is in line with what. I can't see a world in which it isn't, because our priorities are really quite tightly aligned already. But where there are opportunities for us to deliver things that you want to achieve that are also in line with our values and our strategic mission, then let's work together on them. And that is where the potentially additional ask would come from, but it needs to have impact for everybody involved in that conversation.
Thank you. Councillor Nettle, please.
Thank you. Well, I'm never not surprised in the quality of the presentations that we get from you. So a big thank you. And thank you for that reach that you do right across the community. And just seeing some of those slides there, it's words aren't enough, actually, because you just look at the faces on those people and you can see how much it means. It's interesting when we're just talking about funding there, that what I've seen here is, I think it was called reciprocity, which is it the sum of the parts, or is it something else called something else? The sum of the parts don't equal. In fact, you get more from the sum of the parts. I forgot. I forgot. It was too long ago. But basically, what we're seeing is that the individual organisations that put funding into this, it's actually greater than what they've put into it. That's what I'm trying to say. And thank you again for that. I suppose one thing that I would love to see in this, and it's great that we're introducing the community and youngsters into the technical aspect of theatre, and I love that. And right across from sound to drama, it'd be great if we can monitor those people, or just see how they go on in the future, and maybe even invite them back in the future to talk to others about that, because as you said, there's no greater than the word of mouth and people talking to you about how did you get here than a local person going off. And I'm not talking about big, being number ones or pop idols of the year, but just local people that, and I know several through Stage 65 who have done exactly that. Yeah. Thanks.
It's funny you should say that, because there's a Stage 65 alumni event in a few weeks' time where we're hoping to capture some of those stories, because that ripple effect is really hard to map and capture. So that is something we'd like to do. But then also this year we'll be looking at being really clear about each of those programs and what the change we hope to see is, and to capture those stories. So hopefully this time next year we'll be able to answer some of that.
And one sort of small curiosity, well, not curiosity, but is that a third of Wiltshire Creative staff trained at Stage 65. So we're also growing our own, which is wonderful. But it does mean that people who live and want to stay in Salisbury can see themselves having a rich and interesting career and can find that job opportunity within their own city.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Foster, sorry.
No, thank you. And there may not be an answer to this, because based on what you just said, which came after I'd thought of the question, it'd be great to know more about what you want to do going forward. I think that's it. It's amazing presentation. I think, before I became a councillor only a month ago, I was already impressed with what I've attended and seen. And I think, to see what's gone on in the last year. But yeah, I'm really excited and happy to get involved with others in this room as well, I'm sure, to sort of, help you over the coming months and see if we can align, because I think that's what's interesting to me is this is great. How can we build on it? But again, within reality, I feel I have to throw that in there, but yeah.
No,
so.
that's so wonderful to hear. I would say since I've only been in post for 6 months and Sarah 5 weeks. But a big part of our work has been about looking at opportunities to sort of more clearly talk about our work. I thought Jeremy's point was really interesting. I think you're right. The merged organisations are now delivering more, especially in this community space, than the separate organisations will have been doing. But what we're doing now is how do we clearly talk about that and put that at the centre of our sort of mission and vision, particularly around skills development, particularly around communities. I mean, it's really core there. And in terms of building on it, I think it's about, and Sarah will have an answer to this too, it's about clarifying further our beneficiary groups. Who are the people we're reaching and who are the people we're not reaching? And actually making sure we've got all the data piece. At the moment, we've got, there's an absolutely huge amount of work and it's brilliant. And we're covering off many, many communities, but there will be people that Sarah wants to reach that we don't know about yet. And a big piece of work she wants to do, which, I fully endorse, is a consultation with communities. What do they want to see from us as well? We do that already in a lot of the programs, but a large scale piece of work, it feels really exciting.
No, thank you. And I was going to say, I didn't ask, and I'm not asking the hard question of who aren't you reaching, but it's great to hear that you're thinking of that.
We're really open to the fact,
I think there's already some conversations around that, and we can have those. But I think there's definitely some work potential around young adults with special educational needs and disabilities, which is conversations that people have already come to me about in 5 weeks. So I think, sometimes these things present themselves. And then the beneficiary groups that we're working with all have a very clear ask on what next, what more. And then, we would really like to be doing the sort of investment that we're doing in Bemerton Heath in other key areas where the kind of health inequalities stats kind of present similarly.
Thank you. A point from CEO, please, and then Councillor Podger.
Thank you, Chair. It was just to add to what our colleagues at Wiltshire Creative are saying. I think there is, certainly from my perspective, a changing relationship, a more mature relationship, if you will, with Wiltshire Creative that isn't just about commissioner or grant giver, but now phrases that we've used a lot around co-production, co-delivery, what I would say is proper partnership work to make change that you want to see. And so I can only underline what our colleagues have said here, that for me, this feels like a much more grown-up relationship that we're having. So my thanks to officers.
Thank you. Councillor Podger.
I just wanted to add that in my working life, I've now retired, I was CEO of a local charity working with people with disabilities, and you've always, worked really well with people with learning disabilities, and we certainly were involved in the Tempest. I saw that up there, but also things like the patches and things like that. So, much appreciated, really good.
So good to hear.
I'll pass that on to the team.
Yeah.
I think we're done. It just falls to me to say, please stop stealing our staff. You've had one. Don't take any more. Don't take any more. And I think you've won a lot of friends in this room tonight, if you hadn't already. I think we're all fans of what you're doing. We're all very impressed. Thank you very much indeed for coming. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you. It's lovely.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so I think we're on to Community Services Team Update. Is that CEO?
Chair, unfortunately, there was a second part to the cultural grant reporting agenda item, which was a report from Salisbury Museum that I believe was circulated to councillors. Unfortunately, Salisbury Museum haven't been able to send anybody to present or to talk to their report this evening. Bit of a shame. If there are questions, I'm sure that they would be happy to take them, but a missed opportunity perhaps for them. You have the report in front of you. As I say, if there are any questions that you might have, I'd be happy to take them forward on your behalf.
Thank you. And I did read the report this morning. I did speak to the RFO about it. I do think there's some questions raised by the report that they've submitted, particularly around their funding. So it would be lovely to arrange that meeting, I think, just to clarify what our relationship is going forwards and their concerns about our lack of funding of them.
I think for clarity, one of the concerns was set out within the report as a statement that funding has been cut. Certainly over the past 3 years that there hasn't been a cut to funding to Salisbury Museum. In 22-23 it was 16,000, 23-24 it was 16,000, and 24-25 it was 16,000. Going forward in this financial year it will be 16,000 again. There have been discussions, obviously, as you can appreciate, during bids and savings this year and in other years when looking at the budget. But again, there has been no cut to the museum budget. So if the committee would like, I'm happy to write to ask for a representative to attend our next meeting and give us some further detail. In the meantime, if there are any specific questions, happy to field those in advance, particularly around clarifications on funding, because as you say, I can't see the issue that was suggested.
Could I suggest if anybody has questions, can you coordinate those, feed them to CEO, and then we'll pass them on to the right parties in the museum. And then if we need to get somebody back at the next meeting, we can. But in the meantime, we'll get questions to them via email or whatever. Thank you. Next item. So I believe it's a team update. CEO, is that you?
It is indeed. Thank you, Chair. Firstly, apologies from Janine Whitty, who is our interim head of community services. Our substantive member of staff should be with us on the 23rd of June. I've alluded to this appointment for many weeks. We aren't there yet, and I hate to use phrases like jinxing, but I don't want to do just that until this member of staff lands with us. But I'm very excited to be welcoming a new member of staff on the 23rd of June. In the meantime, unfortunately, you have me to take you through a significant number of slides on the community services update. I will try and do this in quick time for you. So just up on screen, we have our current structure, as you can see, headed by the head of community services. We have a support officer providing administrative support, community programs and centres manager who delivers with our officers either the monitoring of contracts where services have been outsourced or direct service provision. We also have a pantry manager, more of that anon. I also appreciate that a number of councillors were able to make it during our induction presentation. And again, I was deputising during that day as well. So apologies if there are some familiarities here. There's a range of activities that we have. You will see that there is, again, as Sarah and Rosa alluded to, there is a lot of crossover here. However, it is 2025. One of the objectives that I've been set this year is to refresh where we're going with our corporate strategy. As part of that, I think there should be also a refreshment of our community development and hopefully with our new head of service in post as well. That will be something that this committee will take a great interest in and help shape the policy direction of where we want to go. Community centres, we have the Bemerton Heath Centre, we have the Friary Centre. Both of those we own the leases on. They were given to us as part of the asset transfer. We've spent a lot of time and effort, certainly over the past 15, 16 months, investing in trying to put those buildings back together and ensure they have the most simplest of things in place and in working, whether it's servers that are going wrong or smoke alarms, real health and safety issues that we need to make sure that we get right in those areas. Again, I think some of this speaks for itself. What has been really pleasing from my point of view has been around the increased bookings from multiple organisations in this area. Finance has been the watchwords during my first year, and our communities team have taken this to heart as well. So it is not the case that it is just money which is going out the door. There is finance which is being contributed to our coffers, and that is supporting the work and the ambitions of what's happening in our local communities. So particularly pleasing in terms of that. Activities that are going on at Bemerton Heath Community Centres, as you can see here, a wide and diverse range. I think how we bring this together under our new head of service is going to be really important. How we publicise this going forward is going to be a real challenge. As you can see there, everything from Cubs and Scouts through to banking, lung health and wellbeing support, very good tie-ins with the NHS, perhaps some further opportunities there. We've recently had our breast screening unit here just on the side of the building for around 5 months. Very little in terms of communications that went out around that. Bit of a shame, but an opportunity there to strengthen the relations, I think, with NHS colleagues. Again, MS Group, parish nurse, really valuable resources there working out of the Bemerton Heath Centre. Beautiful Bemerton project, part funded by Wiltshire Council, community-led improvements to the neighbourhood, new flower and vegetable garden. Again, we have the pump track, which you may or may not be aware was a significant amount of money that came from central government that was through Wiltshire Council and certainly people-led. The idea was the provision of a pump track, which is around BMX track is what I would have understood it as. But I'm quite old now. So a pump track is there. Also, we have pop-up events going forward. But again, they're starting to really get some useful insight into what the local population are wanting, because these members of staff are embedded in the local community at the Bemerton Centre. They are known by the local community. Some of the challenges that have been expressed previously is you have project officers flying in, 3 or 4 months later, they fly out, never to be seen again. So the fact that we have stable officers in that area, notwithstanding our recent change to head of service. That's a really positive thing that we're starting to see some change there. In terms of community activities, I'll take you through some of those now. In terms of older adults, adults and older people update, Senior Social Club, again, when I spent some 2 weeks at the Bemerton Centre, what was particularly interesting was just one lunchtime going down and seeing one of these senior social clubs in action. I thought it was a special event, or they were having a speaker. There were at least 20 service users in that room at that time, getting on, socialising, having a pretty good time about what was going on in there, just meeting as a network, as a support network to each other. That was nothing different, but sadly that's quite unusual now, to have something like that provided by a local authority. And without wanting to get political, that was really heartening for me. Sometimes I get stuck behind spreadsheets and sitting at my desk. That was absolutely wonderful to see that many people just on a random Tuesday being in that room, being a support for each other. That's paid for because of the policy direction that this organisation has set. In terms of lunch and social clubs, we have St Michael's, again, 2-course hot lunch for 60 plus. Through the decisions taking at Bids and Savings, that support was tripled. Sounds like a huge achievement. I think it's gone from around about 1,500 to 5,000. So small amount of money, but big impact. Again, because, forgive me using the old parlance of my grandmother, luncheon clubs don't really exist anymore. Luncheon clubs do exist here at SCC because of the decisions that were taken. Again, we have Brown Street Cafe, and again, strong social bonds formed through those meetings, but also opportunities for other organisations. The work of the Acorn Bank, a social bank that talks about signposting and accessing other services and other departments. A huge opportunity, just a different way of us engaging with a different section of our local communities. In terms of creative arts and crafts, yes, we do all that. Importantly, collaboration with Wiltshire Creative and Salisbury Museum. I won't go into further details on that, but a real opportunity, in my humble opinion, with the new leadership teams that we have at Wiltshire Creative to do something really interesting. Children and families update. Again, we provide youth clubs. We're one of the few local authorities that still provide youth clubs. And again, we also provide youth clubs outside of our borders as well to other parish councils. That's really, really useful. Again, the number of attendees, those are the averages that we have there. You could say that's not a huge number. Actually, the impact that we have, the important bit now is to how can we prove, how can we demonstrate to you councillors the value for money or otherwise that this activity is providing. So a real challenge there. Toddler and half-term groups, again, you can see the diversity that we're talking about here. I won't labour the points. Young people update, the Hangout Tuesdays at the Friary, again, 10 to 15 different individuals then attain and look at that attend the other offerings that we have at the moment. Trips to the local arcade and community games. So trying to engage with local businesses as well to see how they can support and offer some of those opportunities. I talked briefly about the Bishopdown youth groups. Again, we provide a service for Bishopdown. It is funded by their parish council. But again, this is an opportunity. We have capacity. And again, that secures income that we're able then to subsidise some of the activities that we have. We need to choose the words carefully because we couldn't, under law, make a profit, but we ensure that we adequately cover all of our costs. We also have LGBT youth group. Again, there have been some interesting pushback in terms of social media on this previously. I refer you perhaps to some of the comments, and again, in some of the presentations going forward, again, I would ask that our head of service use some of the stories that some of the participants in these group and their thoughts and feelings about how this particular opportunity makes them feel. I think that may assist with decision making going forward. In terms of active lifestyles, Ramblers Wellbeing Walks, a very small amount of money that we put in every other year is around £500. It pays for their public liability. Again, this committee over the past 6 months has had presentations from that particular group to talk about the impact that that has, particularly with the older population and the support network that that has there. Again, some of the other activities that you can see there, district sports. It's not necessarily in around active lifestyles that we directly provide that service. That isn't, we aren't necessarily the experts in rambling. Why would we want to be? But we can work properly in partnership with those organisations that are, and they can deliver quality services. In terms of the pantry, at the moment, if you haven't had the opportunity to go down there, please speak to Abby. Abby is the rather enthusiastic individual on the right-hand side there, an absolute diamond of a member of staff, passionate, engaged, knowledgeable, friendly, everything I would hope to aspire to be. Abby is. As you can see there, 369 active members supporting an average number of families being supported every single week is around about 100 families each and every week. And again, in April, 514 shops that happened during that month. Certainly would be suggesting to the chair and vice chair going forward a further insight into the work of the pantry. Not just, these are great numbers that are there, but I think you as councillors would want perhaps further insight into what that means a little bit more. If you have the opportunity, I often go down on a Tuesday afternoon around about lunchtime. If you get the opportunity, please do. Happy to arrange the chance for you to go down and see that work in action. Really pleasing to see the Food Standards Agency in the last week or so gave an unannounced inspection. Fantastic. What I'm really pleased to say is that yet again, the pantry scored a 5 out of 5, very good, for their food hygiene rating, which is absolutely fantastic. If you've ever had the pleasure of having unannounced inspections, to score top marks is always fantastic. More volunteers that we're having, and again, Easter eggs donated. You know, the look on our service users' faces when they have Easter eggs that they're able to secure through the pantry, really, really positive. Again, community cafe, we can go further into this later on, but again, work is continuing in developing these services each and every week. Guest organisations there that you can see. So the community cafe, again, another opportunity to engage with different parts of our community and being able to bring in different support groups and different networks to be able to empower and inform those service users there as well. And in terms of other activities and events, coach trip to Basingstoke, mentoring older members, volunteering at events, involvement with Silver Salisbury. Picture here of our vintage tea party, which is wonderful to be able to host something like this. And in terms of grants and funding there, we have the community lottery Good Causes. That is looking to be moved under the support of our head of business. He is very excited about the opportunities that could deliver in terms of reinvigorating the community lottery. In terms of where those good causes would look to, again, we would look to this committee to be able to make those decisions. Rent reductions that we did a huge amount of work on before Sarah left. Community development grants, again, sports funding. In terms of the last slide, you'll be pleased to know. I promise it won't be like this at every community services meeting. There is strong community momentum. Again, the numbers keep increasing in terms of the service users, the different people that are coming, expanding partnerships and outreach. Again, more mature conversations. Again, my view is if people don't understand that we want a more mature conversation around community partnerships and working with providers and people that we give grants to, then obviously there will be clear recommendations that would come back to councillors, because we are spending significant thousands and thousands of pounds. Again, I'd be very clear that if we are giving money out to organisations, we'd like to know what happens to that. We'd also like to be invited to come along when that money is spent, so that we can see that what the impact is of that. Exciting networking opportunities on the horizon. I think, again, we've spent a huge year looking around finance. Yes, again, we'll be looking around governance for this second year on policies, procedures, terms and conditions. But again, for me as an individual representing this council, it's incumbent upon me to look at externally to our organisation now, because I think a lot of our partners are fed up of me saying, no, now what's the question? I think it's an opportunity for us to look at those partnership opportunities again. We look forward to our new head of service arriving on the 23rd of June, all being well. Happy to take any questions, councillors.
Thank you, CEO. How do I get on that trip to Basingstoke? I mean, of all the places to go on a coach trip, you know, a 53-seater to Basingstoke. I must be missing something. Secondly, is there an opportunity for us to have access to this PowerPoint presentation? There was such a lot in it. I think we all might value looking at it in slow time in the days ahead. So if it was possible to get us a copy somehow.
Yes, apologies that this presentation wasn't circulated in advance. We will ensure that that it's certainly circulated post the meeting. I look forward to not having to do this in future in terms of circulating on the day. So apologies from me.
Thanks very much. And we'll take burning questions now. There's such a lot in there. Don't forget, I've got a 1-hour leaving speech to do in a minute, and I'd like to get home before midnight. So just bear that in mind. So burning questions now, detailed questions. I suggest you fire emails to Asa in the fullness of time. But Councillor Leslie.
Thanks, Chair. I want to say wow, really, because there's a lot going on here. And it sort of comes back to a question that was asked earlier by our councillors, is we have a finite budget and we need to focus on what we can do. And it comes back to our updating our strategy as a council of where we want to be in the next, well, we're even within this administration. Let's keep it, because if you look too far away, then things change. And I put it on the table that is something that's pretty important, because if we want to do more of this, then I dare say we have to do little of something else. And if we do that, it's all about priorities. So fantastic presentation. But how do we keep or ring the circle of funds? Thank you.
Thanks very much.
I was going to say, taking your point, I will ask a yes/no question now, and we can come back to the detail later, maybe in 3 weeks, although I should cross my fingers so I'm not jinxing anything. And I think you were mentioning about the numbers, and I think we've got all these great events. And at the induction day, if I'm right, it's a fairly new step now. We have sort of social media and digital capabilities we didn't have before. Is that something we're definitely applying to sort of communities, or at least looking forward to better advertise and publish all of this great work? As I say, that could be a yes, no, and then we can sort of come back maybe for details later.
Yes.
Councillor Rideout.
Taking your point around the breast screening unit that was outside and the lack of communication around that we celebrated that was happening, social media did that for us, because a very negative comment was made on one of the Salisbury prolific social media sites about it not being very Christmassy when it arrived. And immediately somebody put on there, cancer's not Christmassy. And having suffered it for a long time, it started, and it was amazing the comments that came from that and really put that person in their place. So even though a negative was there, some amazing positives came out of it, which was fantastic. And we could have made more of that. And maybe that's something we need to think about. On not such a positive thing, last week there was an event in Salisbury for young people, and for some people around this table and maybe some people in the wider community, spending all your days with 1,400 young people, it may not be considered great. The only young people who attended that, apart from one, either went to private schools in Salisbury or the grammar schools. And that was because of costs. And it was a big event. And I think that's something that maybe we should be looking at, making more inclusive. These events that go on in our city that an awful lot of our young people are unable to enjoy because of the costs. And that's something that we need to look at. Thank you.
Happy to look at the specifics, Councillor, of
Inferno, it was called.
Okay. Happy to look at the specifics. And again, when I've previously alluded to mature partnerships, if we aren't the provider, but there are other people that are providers and organisations that we are giving cash to and awarding grants to, we can be very specific around what the activities are that we would like to see and what success looks like. Again, I think that's an opportunity for us to step forward in that area and be a little bit more demanding, for want of a better phrase.
Great, thank you. I think that item is complete. So I think we're on to financial. CEO again.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully the report was circulated in good time, which gives the budget monitoring outturn. I was just going to draw councillors' attention to Schedule A and just by way give a little explanation of what some of the differences are. I promise I will keep this short. £141,250 was how the budget was set previously. What we have spent a great deal amount of time doing this year is being very, very clear on finances, on costs, on incomes, on expenditures. A number of what we call cost centres have been created so we can more clearly, and I know that colleagues from the Conservative team and other political parties have wanted to understand costs clearly. So what we have done in this particular example is be able to demonstrate, to reallocate funds and to be able to say, this is what things cost for you. So whilst in the budget previously officers may have suggested that the cost of running community services was 141,000, we can clearly say that actually the budget that is much more realistic was more like 427,000. We have done that across all of our services now, so we can be much more clear in telling you this is how much it costs to run the crematorium. This is how much it costs to run our environmental services team. We haven't created that money, we've just cut the cake in a different way instead of holding centralised budgets. Again, it's about also being clearer with you as councillors, but actually allowing our professional officers to manage their budgets professionally. The good news that you can see there is once we cut the cake in an appropriate way, and that's how we'll manage that budget going forward, you can see that actually we came in £33,000 under budget. So that was a fantastic result from the community services team there. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
One from me. So are we potentially more flush then with monies various for all these projects? Do we have a little bit more spending power in this new year?
So apologies that I missed full council and the announcements around where we are with finances. The short version is, yes, I believe there is more money in the budget than officers had previously. No, let me retract that statement. I believe there are further savings that officers can make against budgets. And I'm pleased that this year we have brought in a cost improvement plan, a 2-year cost improvement plan. I'm confident that we will exceed the year 1 target and we may exceed the year 2 target within the first 12 months. in answering in a yes/no fashion to your question, I believe that now officers are very clear about their budgets, what they have to spend, that they can make much clearer prioritization of those finances. So I still think there is much to be done in terms of getting greater value for money, getting further grip on finances. And so I think it is a much more positive place for us to be in, rather than me simply saying they've got more money than they thought.
Thank you. Councillor Foster.
Thank you. I think I know the answer to this, but I thought I'd ask. Taking the top row there, so Bemerton Heath community, if I understand it correctly, then originally the budget had £3,500, but now you've recut the cake, £170,000 was the closer. That extra money was previously in another budget line. Therefore, it's for us having taken on the extra costs, someone else has benefited in the fact their number's gone, it's not benefited, their number's gone down, ours has gone up equivalently.
Can I give an explanation, sir?
Yeah.
An example that I would give is prior to my arrival, all of the salaries for the entire organisation sat in one line.
Yeah.
And that was at the discretion of the CEO. I think it's much clearer that actually we break apart that singular budget line for salaries and we say, well, actually, we've got this many people working at Bemerton Heath. We should have that amount of salary allocated to that particular part of the organisation. That's just one example. We've done that everywhere. So we haven't created more money. We haven't spent it a different way. We haven't taken it away from everybody. We've just been much more clearly, to go back to the idea, we need to be transparent with everybody around costs. So you can say, actually, if tomorrow you decided you didn't want to undertake any further sports activities, then that would be £4,500 that you would cut from that budget. We just want to be really clear with you about how much things cost.
Yeah, and I guess then my final question then, which I think the answer is yes, when we think about the future, as many of us have talked about, the budget that this group are probably overseeing is just over £400,000 based on the previous, and then of course up and down, and that's what we're going to be having to consider going forward.
Yes, once we add in the bids and savings, so there'll be a slight increase on that, but yes, you're talking under £500,000.
So, yeah.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you. I think that was a really clear explanation. I'm very grateful for it. Can we just be clear? So obviously recutting all the lines, et cetera, makes complete sense. Can you give us an indication just how much as a percentage possibly, I mean, it's going to come back to, the column 2 is actually money brought forward as opposed to environment. So I would just want to be clear that most of that money is just moved around as opposed to money that was brought forward from the previous year.
Yes, but I can also give you a breakdown at a later stage.
And then my second question, if I could, is the pantry line. So the new budget for it is 51,000. The actual spend is 31,000. That's almost concerningly low. I would have thought that the pantry, given its good work and how many families it supports, ought to be spending its budgets.
Yes, the short version is actually, in terms of some of the income that was generated around that, we saw much more income generated through grants than we saw previously. And again, it's where we then put the line in terms of salary expenditure as well. So you're absolutely right. I would, we have a pantry, it needs to spend every single penny. The figures don't show that in this particular instance, but again, it was particularly around the securing of a number of grants in that area that underlines or gives a slight false positive in that area. 100% the pantry, and Abby is very, very clear on maximising value for money for all income and budget that's there. Whilst we've been very clear about financial management and making sure we paused what we could during this past year, the pantry never received that instruction. It was very clear that we needed to maintain our spending profile.
No more questions. Fantastic. Any other items, CEO? Any other business? Please, can I add an item? Well, obviously, I'd like to thank my family, my wife, my children, the producer, all the actors that supported me in this. I've written 3 books, and I keep joking about what might go in the 4th volume. Today will. At 3 o'clock this afternoon, I was being checked out on a mobility scooter. I now have a license to drive up and down pavements, which is really exciting. I never thought that would happen. To be quizzed about votes of no confidence before I've opened my mouth, that has to be a first. I thought, give me a chance to say something, you know. If you'd given me 5 minutes, I would have dug a hole and you'd have had some evidence to go for that vote. I think it's really important that we hold on to what we said a couple of hours ago about working together and not falling out. And I did feel there was just a little bit of a hint of falling out at the start of this meeting. I'm very happy to stand down. I'm very happy to work with this group of people and all the fantastic work that I think we can do together. But let's work together. You know, let's have some harmony. Let's set aside the colours of our various affiliations and be a team working for the good of the city. I'd like to offer my resignation, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. We will note that, in which case could I ask the Vice Chair to bring the meeting to an end?
Thank you everyone for your attendance this evening. This meeting is closed.